Hello and welcome to For the Health of It. I'll be interviewing Dr. Chantal Bisson from HSA Alex's Place. We're going to be talking about respect of others, and it's really coming up with the political season that we are going into and the one that we witnessed in the U.S. Hello and welcome to For the Health of It, Dr. Bisson.
Thank you so much for having me here again, Miss Tara. It's always such a pleasure to be here with you.
Same here. I know you call me Miss Tara, and that's a Cayman thing or a colonial thing. I'm not quite sure. And I don't want that for myself, because in coaching, putting that miss puts you above someone.
Yes. It's a form of respect, isn't it?
It is.
It's really interesting because, like, when we're together, I just call you Tara.
Yes.
And then we're in a public space on the radio, and suddenly I call you Miss Tara.
Right.
And I suppose it's a way, isn't it? It's a shorthand of saying I respect you, and everybody else, saying to everybody else, this is a woman I respect.
Mm-hmm.
But I totally understand what you mean. Sometimes it stops us from being seen, just as us.
Yes.
So thank you, Tara, for having me.
You're more than welcome. So, as we go into this silly season, but it's more than that. It's how the world is at the moment, the polarization, the I'm entitled to getting in front of you, my needs are bigger than your needs, the lack of being seen or heard. So how can we really understand what it means to respect other people and understand the complexities of what a polarized society environment does?
So respect, it's one word, isn't it? And it sounds really simple, but actually respect is a complex set of behaviours. It's about the way we talk to people, the language we use, the way we listen to people. So when we respect somebody, we tend to listen a lot more than we speak. And that is something that kind of characterises respect, I suppose. And we know we're being respected when somebody is listening to us in a conversation. But we have shorthand for respect. There are like a surface level set of behaviours, like me calling you Miss Tara. Now, I could do that, but not show any of the other set of behaviours that actually shows respect. And so really what we want to do here today is we're thinking about actually what truly characterises respect. If we were never going to call each other Miss, Doctor, whatever, Mr. again, how would we show that person that we still respect them? And it's about the set of behaviours underneath that.
You want to describe what those behaviours are?
So it's about using respectful language, so not cussing. It's about listening to somebody. It's about a type of understanding that we may have different perspectives, but that we're going to tolerate that because of how we see somebody. So tolerating difference, different opinions, different perspectives is part of showing respect. It's about taking the time for somebody. It's about being on time, Tara. So I was late today because I was doing something else. And I was really worried coming here, panicking because I'm like, oh, it looks really disrespectful. Being on time, showing up, is a form of respect. And so we will all know that when somebody does that for us, that it feels really respectful for us. And when we do that for somebody else, we're being really respectful to them.
Okay. And I know the audience is sitting here going, well, where is Tara going with this? Because what does respect have to do with health?
It's a great question. So respect is incredibly important in health because respect is a form of connection and a form of communication, a form of acceptance and a form of belonging. So when we feel respected and when we show respect, we tend to connect with people better. That connection gives us a sense of being accepted, and that gives us a sense of belonging. And that acceptance, belonging and connection, they form the cornerstones of our mental health, as you'll have heard me talk about before. And so respect is one of those kind of behaviours that really does allow us to connect with others. As long as we're not like so respectful, removed from somebody, but being respectful in any kind of interaction with our closest friends, with our family, with our children, with our grandparents, with our spouses, is a way of having connection, belonging, and acceptance. When we don't have respect, it forms divide between people. And when we have divide and distance between people, that also impacts our mental health and our physical health.
We as human beings are pack animals.
Yeah.
And we really enjoy belonging. That is one of our highest sets of needs other than safety, right?
Absolutely. So true.
If we don't have that, then the anxiety and the stress comes up.
It really does make us feel anxious. If somebody speaks to us critically, disrespectfully, it makes us feel like, am I not worth being spoken to? Nice, is there something wrong with me? It really kind of pulls into our shame, and that directly affects our mental health. And so when we have a lovely interaction with somebody at the supermarket checkout, when we have a brief but lovely interaction with a colleague or a family member, it lifts us up. It makes us feel better. So respect, communication, connection has everything to do with our health and our mental health.
Well put. Thank you. And I hope the audience is really soaking that in, because our world is so divided. The research shows that we get on better with people we view as the same. We look alike, we talk alike, we have the same experiences, but we no longer live in that world. You know, we live in a world where our neighbors are now part of our everyday, our Caribbean neighbors, our English neighbors, or everywhere, Chinese, India is in this community. And it's men and women and they have different religions than us. They eat differently than us. I saw how polarized the world is on either side, the extreme of it. I just saw a meme today with the Statue of Liberty getting up and walking with her suitcase before she got deported.
Oh my goodness.
And I had to think, oh my word.
Yeah.
So how do we learn to accept our differences? And even though it is political fodder, is that how you pronounce that word? When they do like to divide us.
Oh, they do. In fact, any government kind of likes to divide its people because then it has somebody else to blame the issues on. Yes. So they love to other.
I love that. The other.
They love to other, and we let governments other us.
Yes.
Okay, and other people. So let's take you and I, Tara. Okay, we are very different. We're from very different countries. We have some different beliefs. We have some different kind of things about who we are.
For true.
Okay, and yet we connect because of our similarities, because of our belief in some of the same things.
Yes.
And that connects us really strongly, I feel.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
And so when we think about how we manage difference, it's about trying to look past the surface difference to the humanity, to the similarity of what's beneath. And so sometimes we can feel like we can connect with somebody and that they're really similar to us on the surface. And when we scratch that surface and look underneath, actually, we're not the same at all. We find we don't connect with that person. And yet sometimes if we allow ourselves to look past our differences with somebody, we can find a very strong connection. Because connection in the face of difference is a very real connection. It's an acceptance of each party or each group saying, I know that we have differences. I know there are things here that could divide us, but we're not going to let them.
Yeah.
We're going to see our humanity, our sameness, because we all have a common humanity.
I love that.
Yeah.
I mean, can you imagine if we all had the same flavors? We wouldn't know any difference. But it's more than that, too. If we didn't have different ideas, we wouldn't use fire, for instance, right? We'd still be hunting smaller animals, apparently, because of the Ice Age, but we wouldn't be able to cook them. We would be dying quicker.
Yeah.
So much innovation has come out of being of different ideas and people talking and having different experiences. So that's the important part. But how do we encourage that in this political season and not get so caught up in the othering?
Yeah, that's such a good question. I suppose for me, what it makes me think about is curiosity. So curiosity is that ability to stop ourselves being defensive about our position, moving away from being defensive and thinking I'm only right, and think I wonder why that person feels that way. Why does my neighbour, who's had the similar upbringing to me, feel differently about this? So we use curiosity, we ask, try and help me understand this. Okay, so I might do this with a Trump supporter, for example, in the US. So I wouldn't be a supporter of Trump, but I'm wildly curious about what drives people to support him, about why. So we've got to ask the questions and be curious, first of all, and not be defensive. And then we have to use something that is just the most important thing we can use, which is our skill of listening. It's not just listening. It's listening in a way that Kristin Neff calls listening with fascination. Listening with fascination is the most beautiful thing. It's the ability to stop and listen without formulating your next sentence. You're not thinking about what you're going to say next. You are just in a pure state of listening to understand. It does not mean you're going to agree. Don't mistake listening with agreeing. It's not the same. Listening is just listening, okay? And what it might do is connect us with somebody with a different perspective. It might allow us to still be friends with them. It may allow us to be friends with them. And it might help us to understand them even if we do not agree. And so curiosity and listening with fascinations are two of the ways that we get through the barrier of difference.
And how do we put down the I'm right, you're wrong, and the judgment while we're listening? Because I think it's in that conversation, listening with fascination, too often, myself, if I'm caught in a conversation at the moment, a debate, I have really strong opinions, so I'm like, damn it, I'm right.
Yeah,
of
course.
But I have learned to take a deep breath and to listen with fascination. But how do we describe that and help people to give that other person the space and help them to understand they're not giving up anything, their position or whatever it is they feel they're giving up. They're just listening for understanding so that their health, their blood pressure won't go up. Okay. Yeah. Their anxiety of being around other people will not go up, which helps.
I think You've kind of put it perfectly, actually, already, which is you don't have to give up your position to listen to somebody else. You don't have to think maybe I'm not right in order to listen to somebody. You can think, I really do believe I'm right, and I'm going to listen to this person's perspective because I'm interested. I'm curious. How did they get to that perspective? I've always kind of liked this person, or maybe I haven't. But I'm going to give them the space. We don't have to give everyone the space and time. We don't, but it's helpful to be respectful of everybody. And knowing that you don't have to give up your stance, knowing that you don't have to think maybe I'm not right in order to listen is also really important, because then you can have both and. You can have both, I think I'm right, and I'm going to listen to this person who I don't think is right. Mm-hmm. You can have both of those things.
Yes.
And like family therapy the whole of family therapy is based on that premise of both and. Both one thing can exist and another opposing thing can exist at the same time. So I can both believe that I'm right and listen to this other person. And I'm showing myself and them respect by doing it.
Yes. And if we can create more of that, which leads me into dealing with divisiveness. Mm-hmm. Why is it so easy for us to slip into this state? Yeah. And what are the potential dangers, not only for political discourse, but for our community? I'm more scared for our community than I am for the political scene.
I think it's knowing when to draw the line. knowing when to say, okay, that's enough. Let's just agree to disagree. I'll give you an example. Me and my sister are opposing forces politically. She's very right-wing. She works in finance. She is a strong believer, kind of each to their own. And if you haven't done well enough in life, then that's your bad. Okay. And I'm a true libertarian. You know, I believe in kind of share the wealth. I believe in kind of equality in terms of helping people up who've not had a good opportunity. We're very divided. And it can get us into real trouble. It can really get us into some arguments, as you might imagine. Okay. And I got to the point, I don't think my sister did, but I got to the point of saying, actually, we're not going to argue about this anymore, because it went from kind of being funny to, when stuff got more serious as we got older, not being funny and being quite divisive. So I have kind of said, look, I know that we have these differing opinions. I know you're not going to agree with what I'm going to say. So let's just talk about something else. You know, that's enough. I love you, and that's all that matters. And we can still have different political views. So I guess it's about knowing when to stop and draw the line, and who you should and should not have these conversations with, if you want to maintain your good relationships with them.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, and sometimes that's a really good example of I love you, but
yeah, that's it. I love you, and let's not talk about this. Therefore, I think that's really important.
What impact is it if we keep drumming up the flames and not allowing understanding, saying it's okay to be different, but, or and?
I guess it's not good for the whole community, because when we think about belonging and acceptance, everyone needs to feel like they belong. So by drumming up the flames, we're creating bigger divides. And if we can step away from that and have some acceptance, it's not agreement, it's acceptance that there are differences of opinions for many different reasons, then actually that's really good for the well-being of the whole community. The whole community, everybody in themselves, their parents, their children, their grandparents. It's good for everybody's health and mental health. When we can step away from fanning the flames.
Yeah, because we go into fight or flight.
Yeah.
I mean, this is our modern day running on the savannah against from the little
saber-toothed tigers.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's right.
So our adrenaline goes up, our glucose level, and we have so much as it is of type 2 diabetes and so much of the immuno diseases in our community. Some of this is fanning the flames of our health.
Yeah, because it causes stress.
Yeah.
And we know that stress triggers all sorts of health difficulties, immune disorders. It can trigger cancer when we're under acute stress. So we really do need to think about our health when we think about these issues. And it's really important for people's self-care to think about some of these things, because we know that our blood pressure goes through the roof when we're stressed, and actually we can let a whole host of it go by being comfortable with our own opinion, listening to others, deciding when we're not going to have conversations.
And I think there's a direct correlation with this. I looked at Addison Kelly's memorial wall. I think that's what it's called. I'm not sure.
I think it is, yes.
And it was 9 people in our community, and that is the 9 people who wanted tiles up, died of suicide last year.
Yeah.
Okay. That tells me, and that's a direct correlation of mental health.
Yeah.
And imagine, I was a teenager growing up, and I really do not know how I'm still alive today. I'll be honest with you.
Wow.
Because I think it was, I'm going to perhaps overshare on the radio. My mother tried very many times to die by suicide. Okay. And I think I resented her so much for that propelled me forward. So I think maybe that might be the reason, because it was, I grew up very harshly until I became a little bit older in my life. And I didn't belong.
No.
I'm 62 and I still kind of always feel like I'm going upstream. So I don't attribute it to strength. I attribute it to the support that I had as I got into a teenager. That divisiveness and growing up really does have a hell of an impact on...
Oh, it really does.
You know.
That struggling to belong, that struggling to feel accepted, that massively impacts our mental health. And I'm so glad you told me and us about your mum. Thank you for sharing that. That's incredibly brave and would have been just extraordinarily difficult to experience that kind of abandonment as a child that massively impacts you going into your younger adulthood and throughout your life. So thank you for sharing that. And you're right that divisiveness does have acute impacts on our mental health. And I suppose that's why I wanted to talk about this with you today and linking it into respect, because respect is like the antidote to divisiveness. Respect allows us to hear others. It allows us to stop othering others.
Beautifully said. So what can individuals, especially those in the public eye, do to set a tune for respectful and political conversation? I'm kind of switching gears a bit here, so that we as everyday citizens can encourage this in our own discussions, because they do set the tune for the world stage, right?
Absolutely. And it's a little bit like, if I take theory from family therapy and actually from clinical psychology generally, the political figures are a bit like the country's mum and dads.
Yes.
And so they're the role models, and people will enact what they see. And so I suppose if figures are just like mums and dads in households, when they disagree, what we hope to see is that they disagree politely or with respect. Then everybody else can understand they can do the same thing. Far be it from me to comment politically, but I guess it's about any leadership in any organisation. We will kind of be influenced by what we see, just like we are in our families with our parents. And so if our parents are speaking respectfully to each other, even when they disagree, then everybody else is going to be doing the same thing. And that sets a great tone, I think. Yeah, and I've seen some really, really lovely examples of that, of debates being held very respectfully. And that's exactly what should happen. I think schools have debate clubs, and people are taught to debate respectfully, and that it can absolutely be done, can't it? And people here show us that it can be done too. Yes,
and if our leaders were kinder to other nationalities, we might pick up on that. And it doesn't mean they're weak. Actually, there's a certain amount of strength in, looking at different people and being okay with them. It shows that you have confidence in you and you respect you. I think respect comes, if you respect yourself, it kind of flows out of you. But if you don't have, I could be wrong. I don't know. I'm not a therapist, but,
Yeah, it's so true. I think if you treat yourself with respect, you treat others with respect. And it just like compassion, it starts with us first. It's got to start with us first.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Any final thoughts before we wrap up?
I think my thought is that this can be this kind of set of behaviours can be attributed to any part of our lives. I'm a real big believer in respect, and I try to treat everybody with respect, including my husband, my children, my sister. I feel like if we can treat everybody around us with respect, no matter what, even if we don't agree with them, it's good for us. It reduces our stress levels, and it's good for our health.
Thank you so much, Dr. Chantal Bisson from HSA Alex's Place. For the health of it, we are moving you to the life you want.